We need to talk about what just happened in the last few hours because this changes everything. Israel has just carried out what intelligence sources are calling one of the most significant strikes inside Iranian territory in decades. And the target wasn't some random military installation. They went after Ali Larijani, one of the most powerful figures in the Iranian regime, and the Secretary of Iran's National Security Council, a man who until very recently stood right beside the Supreme Leader himself. And right now, as we're recording this, nobody knows if he's alive or dead. Let me be clear about why this matters so much. Larijani isn't just another name on a list. This is someone who wielded enormous influence within Iran's power structure. He was a right-hand man to the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, the person Khamenei trusted with his most sensitive decisions, the architect of policies that shaped Iran's approach to regional conflicts and its confrontations with Israel and the West. And when Khamenei was killed at the start of this war, Larijani didn't fade into the background. He became even more central, one of the leading figures trying to hold the regime together during the absolute chaos that followed. Going after him is a statement, and it's a statement that Israel's making loud and clear. The strike happened overnight, and Israeli officials have confirmed they carried it out. They're not hiding from this, they're owning it. But what they're not confirming yet is whether they actually got him. Was Larijani killed in the blast? Was he injured? Did he escape? These are the questions everyone's asking right now. And the silence from Tehran is deafening. Usually when something like this happens, Iranian state media jumps on it immediately, either to deny it or to vow revenge. But so far, nothing substantial. And that silence might be telling us something. Think about the operational complexity of what Israel just pulled off. They struck inside Iran, not along the border, not in some contested territory, but inside the country itself. That means they had intelligence about where Larijani was going to be at a specific time, and that means they had the capability to get aircraft or missiles into Iranian airspace without being shot down. And that means their intelligence apparatus is so deeply embedded in Iran that they can track the movements of one of the regime's most protected figures. This isn't just a military operation. This is a demonstration of reach, of capability, of Israel telling Iran that nowhere is safe. And here's where it gets even more intense. Larijani was the only target. In a separate recent strike, also inside Iran, Israel went after Akram al-Ajuri, the leader of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, along with other top officials in that terror organization. So we're not talking about one isolated incident. We're talking about a systematic campaign to decapitate the leadership of Iran's proxies and Iran's own security establishment. Israel is going deep, taking massive risks, and sending a message that they're willing to strike anyone, anywhere, if they believe that person represents a threat. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is one of the most violent groups operating against Israel. They're responsible for countless rocket attacks, suicide bombings, and terror operations. They're funded by Iran, armed by Iran, and directed by Iran. Taking out their leadership inside Iranian territory is Israel basically saying, we're not just going after the foot soldiers anymore, we're going after the generals. We're going after the decision makers. We're going after the people who plan these attacks, and we're going to do it on your soil. The timing of all this cannot be ignored. We're at a moment where tensions between Israel and Iran are at an all-time high. The war that started with Khamenei's death has spiraled into something much larger and more dangerous than anyone predicted. Both sides have been escalating, both sides have been testing each other's resolve, and both sides have been preparing for the possibility of full-scale regional war. These strikes feel like Israel making a calculated decision that offensive action deep inside enemy territory is the best defense. They're not waiting for Iran to bring the fight to them, and they're taking the fight to Iran. But here's the question that should worry everyone watching this situation. What does Iran do now? Because they can't just ignore this. They can't let strikes on their soil targeting their top officials go unanswered. The regime is already under enormous pressure. They've lost their supreme leader. They're dealing with internal dissent. They're trying to project strength while managing chaos. If they don't respond forcefully to what Israel just did, they risk looking weak. They risk losing credibility with their proxies. They risk emboldening their enemies. But if they do respond with a major attack, we could be looking at the spark that ignites a regional war that pulls in multiple countries and potentially the United States. Intelligence analysts are scrambling right now to assess what Iran's next move might be. Will they launch massive rocket and missile strikes at Israeli cities? Will they activate Hezbollah in Lebanon to open another front? Will they target American bases in the region? Will they go after Israeli or American interests somewhere else in the world through covert operations? All of these options are on the table, and all of them carry enormous risks. There's also the domestic political calculation. Inside Iran, the regime needs to show its people that it's still strong, that it can defend the country, that it can punish its enemies. But the reality is, these Israeli strikes expose vulnerabilities. They show that Iran's air defenses can be penetrated. They show that Iran's intelligence services have been compromised. They show that even the most protected officials aren't safe. That's humiliating for a regime that bases much of its legitimacy on strength and resistance to foreign enemies. For Israel, this is the doctrine they've embraced for decades, taken to its logical extreme. They've always operated under the principle that the best way to ensure their security is to take out threats before those threats can materialize. They've assassinated nuclear scientists, they've bombed weapons convoys, they've struck military installations. But going after political leadership inside Iran itself is a different level entirely. It's crossing a threshold that had been mostly respected for years. And once you cross that threshold, it's very hard to go back. The international community is watching all of this with growing alarm. Behind closed doors, there are frantic diplomatic efforts to prevent this situation from exploding into something uncontrollable, but the public statements have been careful, measured, almost hesitant. Nobody wants to be seen as taking sides in a way that might escalate things further. But everyone understands that what's happening right now could reshape the entire Middle East. We're also hearing reports of increased military activity across the region. Israeli forces are on high alert, air defenses are active, reservists are being called up, American assets in the area are repositioning. Everyone's preparing for the possibility that Iran's response could come at any moment and could come in ways we're not expecting. What happens next is going to define the trajectory of this conflict for months, maybe years to come. If Larijani is confirmed dead, Iran loses one of its most capable leaders at a moment when it can least afford to. If he survived, Iran will use that to claim resilience and vow revenge with even more determination. Either way, we've entered a new and far more dangerous phase. Israel has shown it's willing to take extraordinary risks to eliminate threats. Iran now has to decide how to respond in a way that restores its deterrence without triggering a wider war that could destroy everything. And the rest of the world has to figure out how to prevent two regional powers from dragging everyone else into a catastrophe nobody wants. This is the moment we've been worried about, and it's unfolding right now in real time.